My guest had an angelic visitation that launched him into supernaturally teaching people how to determine their purpose. Next on this edition of It's Supernatural.
Centuries have come and gone, offering wisdom and understanding throughout the ages. Today, there should be nothing beyond one's power to discover. And yet the strange, unusual, and mysterious world of the supernatural defies understanding. Stay tuned for a unique and powerful investigation into a curious, undiscovered universe, only on It's Supernatural.
Hello, I'm Sid Roth, your investigative reporter. I'm here with Dr. Paul Kreitz. There is a purpose on your life. Most people go their whole life, they never find the purpose, or even if they find the purpose, they don't fulfill the purpose, or it might even be an improper focus. But this isn't some psychological approach. This was a heavenly approach. What do I mean by that? Dr. Paul Kreitz, you were speaking in an area of, I believe it was Virginia, and
right.
You were staying at a bed and breakfast.
Yes.
Take it from there.
Well, the bed and breakfast had a 200-year history, and the local sponsors of my speaking, my talk, did not have a hotel nearby and asked would I live and stay at this bed and breakfast, and I said certainly, and all the way up the curvy country road, they said, by the way, there is a little history here that they have seen some unusual events. And I said, what do you mean unusual?
Yeah, I think I'd ask that.
And I said, unusual? Explain. And they said, well, there's a history of the 200 years, and the owners and guests have seen demonic activity here, demons.
Did this bother you?
Well, I was looking forward to a rustic country bed and breakfast rest, and I realized that we had been placed supernaturally into a place that was going to have a defining moment in our lives. And so we checked in, my personal assistant, he took one room across the hall, I went into my room. There was a uncomfortableness in the bed and breakfast. I met the ownership, nice people, but there was an undercurrent of unrest. There was an undercurrent of difficulties. And being the kind of person I am, I began to question and find out that there was some problems going on in the family and some challenges going on with their adult children, with drugs and problems. And things were beginning to manifest. And I just found myself, I believe, at the right place at the right time.
But one night you were very tired. You didn't even want to talk with your friend. You went to bed, but you had an unusual thing happen.
Well, I had prayed night after night and day after day in my speaking in these meetings that we were in, and things were going well, but yet I was physically, emotionally, and spiritually drained. I mean, exhausted. I turned to my assistant and I said, David, don't come over tonight. He had one of those midnight, come on by and let's chat and review life dialogues. I said, tonight, just let me rest. I showered, went to bed, turned out the lights, went into bed, turned my back away from the door with thoughts in my mind that I had never been this exhausted.
So it wasn't just that you were working hard, there was almost an external thing.
It was almost an oppressive attack, and even the thought crossed my mind, and looking back, it was a crazy thought, but like, maybe I ought to leave this area of profession. Maybe I ought to quit speaking and trying to impact people's lives. Maybe I ought to just go get a job and stay home and work 9 to 5, and crazy thoughts of just changing things. And I said, man, I'm so tired. And I'd learned early in life, never make a major decision when you're tired, but I thought to myself as I was going to sleep, I was weary, wore out, that tomorrow we'll pack it in and I'm going to head home.
Were you really entertaining the thought of changing professions?
It actually crossed my mind that night. I actually thought that maybe I had pushed and gone the limit And now it was time for a change. And all along, I was seeking purpose and seeking understanding and trying to find focus in my own life. And that's the night.
Well, you know what's kind of interesting? This was not a natural oppression. And sometimes you may have felt like that, but it wasn't just coming from his own mind. It wasn't just coming because he was overworked. There was like a crushing, he used those words. There was like an oppression that was something demonic.
Well, there are probably people watching us on this program now who are saying, is everyone stressed out like I am? Does everyone feel like you just sometimes want to go get in the car and never come back home? So I don't think that those thoughts, though they were terrible in origin, were new with me. I think thousands of people have thought that thought, which out of this event began to birth a brand new direction and a brand new course in my life of this supernatural event that occurred.
What happened?
Well, that night, laying in the bed, my back against the door, facing the wall, all of a sudden, I felt someone grab me and shake me, and my first impression was, you know, David has come into my room. He wants to talk, and he wants to wake me up. And I rolled over in anger to yell at David, throw him out of the room. And there was no person in my room. There was no human presence in my room.
Did you have enough time to think, I'm afraid?
My first thought, immediate, like any other person, was, what is going on here? I know something touched me. Of course, I had that thought that we'd wind up that winding road and maybe there was something going on, but it wasn't a negative feeling. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, this presence came into the room. And I looked down at the foot of my bed, and a silhouette began to outline. And I don't know how to describe it except to tell you that inside the silhouette was like liquid water, like light moving as water. And it began to fill, and I recognized it as a figure. And inside of me, instantly, I knew that this was an angel. I can't tell you how I knew that. I just knew that this was an angel.
Had you ever seen an angel before?
I'd never seen anything like this in my life. In fact, I was afraid to tell people for weeks. I told my assistant, I said, don't tell anyone. People are going to think I've lost my mind.
Now, did this person with this like liquid water inside, did they have like a shape like a human?
Yeah, it was like a very tall man, like a very tall, strong person. And as this liquid light began to...
I'll tell you what, hold that thought. We'll be back in just a moment because this angel changed the whole course of history for Dr. Paul Kreitz, and I believe what he's going to tell you will change your destiny. We'll be right back. Hello, YouTube, Mishpocha. Mishpocha is a Hebrew word. It means family. This is Sid Roth. Welcome to my world, where it's naturally supernatural. If you've been blessed by this show, please subscribe. Then click the bell so you won't miss a single episode of It's Supernatural. Hello, I'm Sid Roth, your investigative reporter, here with Dr. Paul Kreitz, and here he is, so to speak, just trying to go to sleep. There's so much oppression coming on him. I mean, it's a demonic type of oppression. He's thinking, I'm going to change professions. I mean, it's just feeling depressed, and some of you, you've gone through experiences like this, and he just rolled over. All I want to do is go to sleep. I mean, I want to just tune out. And he feels an arm pull him, and there's no one in the room. And then he sees for the first time in his life an angel. And this angel, Paul, you said, had like liquid water going?
Like the inside of the figure was like liquid light moving. The light was moving like water. Like you would see a moonlit night hit a lake and see the movement over. And it was just absolutely bringing my focus to this figure. And sitting there, I didn't know at that moment whether to jump, to run. I didn't want to speak because I was waiting. And again, knowing inside of me, I was waiting to hear something. I knew inside of me, this is an angel. And number two, I knew it was going to say something.
Number three, what did he say? We're on the edge of our seat.
He said, everything, said Paul, everything is going to be all right.
He called you by name.
He called me by name. He said, Paul, everything is going to be all right. And in that moment, even as I say this to you, I get the hair raised up on the back of my neck because things weren't right. There was something that was just not there. It was all the parts of my life were there, but they weren't into place. Things were, I was right in my heart, but I wasn't correct in my approach or my thinking about things. And though I was having success and people's lives were being touched, it was not bringing the fulfillment and the release of my life into other people's lives. And when that happened, everything is going to be all right. My life and everything about it, everything I said from that day forward began to change.
What happened is today he speaks for major corporations all over the world. He speaks for places like the World Bank, for a major airline, for the Dallas football team, Dallas Cowboys. But he had a message of how people can determine their God-given purpose. And it's so simple, it's profound. You tell people there are 4 questions they must answer for themselves.
Out of my own personal quest for understanding my purpose, I began to document from talking to my mentors and talking to other people that were my heroes. How did you get from there to here? And I began to formulate a plan and began to create it. I documented it into a book, and then I began going around teaching.
We have here, Discovering the Power of Purpose.
And I began teaching out of that book, and I would walk up to someone, and they would say, I'm without purpose. I'd say, I understand. Frustrated. They said, I'm at the end of my rope. I understand. I just feel like sometimes just shutting the door and leaving and quit. I understand. I am so stressed out. I understand. You need a purpose. Well, where is it? What is it? You were born with it. Every person is born with their purpose.
Any exceptions?
No exceptions. In fact, in the Old Testament scriptures, there's a prophet named Jeremiah who said that God knew him when he was in his mother's womb. So if God knew us then, he had a plan and purpose for our life. And from this day, as I speak to you and go around and speak at different places, I can actually supernaturally talk with people and begin to get an insight or a thought about purpose for their life. And I ask them 4 simple questions. What do you love? What do you hate? What makes you cry? And what annoys you?
So simple. Let's take each question. What's the first one again?
Well, what you love, when you give a simple answer, reveals a gift that's in your life. It could be...
So did you get that? What you love. I mean, just quickly, say out loud. What do you love? And what does that reveal?
It reveals a gift. It might be dominant. It might be hidden. But what you love. What you love. It could be the ability to love children, the ability to be a baker, the ability to...
All right, let's take that for example. You were telling me about...
I had a 70-year-old man in one of my meetings walked up to me at the end of the meeting. I was getting into my car to go to the airport, and he handed me a cake. Now, I've had people give me tapes and give me books and he gave me a cake. And I said, sir, he said, I'm 70. As a child, I loved to bake. As a young boy, I loved to be in my mother's kitchen. He said, my family, my brothers, people made fun of me. He said, when I went in the military, I signed up to be a baker. I baked pastries. I was a great cook, but people still made fun of me. When I got out of the service, they said, you got to get a real job. He said, for 40 years, I worked at a factory. He said, but tonight, when I heard you speak this week, I made a decision. I was going to do what I love. He said, here's a cake. I'm a baker.
How many people are missing their purpose? Haven't you felt there's got to be something more to life than work, eat, sleep, and that's the way it goes? That you were created with a purpose? Did you hear what Paul said, the prophet Jeremiah said, before you were conceived in your mother's womb, I knew you and I called you. Before you were conceived in your mother's womb, God knew you and God called you. When we come back, we're going to go over those 4 questions, and I believe God will as supernaturally move on you as he did on that baker. We'll be right back. Hello, Sid Roth, your investigative reporter. Before we find out the supernatural purpose that you were created for, and I believe that when you find these 4 questions from Dr. Paul Kreitz, you'll understand it. I want you to come into kind of a mini production meeting. We're going into the studio right now with Janie Duvall. And who is our guest next week?
Sid, you'll be interviewing Rick Amato, who had Crohn's disease. He had other diseases and a colostomy. And I think people are going to be really amazed when they find out how he was healed, don't you?
Not only they're going to be amazed, the thing that I think so wonderful is that he, at the same time, he was addicted to alcohol. He was drinking. He was addicted to drinking. No hope. I mean, he was so depressed. And when he got set free of the diseases, he also got set free of the alcohol addiction and the drug addiction.
Well, what I find amazing is that he had supernatural words just appear before him. They were these 2 words, and after he saw those 2 words, he was completely healed.
Sounds like fun. Back to Dr. Paul Kreitz, and let me ask you a question. There were 4 questions that you posed to people. If they can answer these 4 questions, what will happen?
Because the purpose is not your decision, it's your discovery. It's not a, what do you want to be when you grow up? Your decision. Your purpose was already put on the inside of you. And you don't need a psychic or someone outside of your spiritual life to reveal to you what's already on the inside of you. But you've got to ask some questions. What do you love? Because what you love reveals a gift that's in you. What you hate reveals what you're called to correct. And what makes you cry? Sometimes where we hurt the most reveals what we will heal the best. So
is it sort of like the thing that has hurt us so bad prepares us to have the compassion to help someone else in that area?
I think in Dallas, of the lady that began Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, you know, out of the tragedy in her own life, a great organization has been birthed.
Where her daughter actually died from a drunk driver.
Right. Right, and now that has been birthed into her life, and many times where we do hurt the most, we can heal the best. And finally, the 4th question: what annoys you? You know, what annoys a dentist? Tooth problems. What annoys a mechanic? Car problems. Those things that annoy you are those things that you can solve, the problems you were created to solve, and those things that annoy you will be attracted to your life. That's why things that bother you may not bother someone else, but you're called to fix it because that's your purpose. And your purpose gets you up early, and your purpose will keep you up late, and your purpose will keep you going when everyone else stops.
Sometimes someone knows their purpose, but as you explain in your book, their focus is wrong. What do you mean by that? What
you look at the longest can become the strongest in your life. If you look at all the problems, you'll become problem-oriented, and you'll begin to lose your focus. And I believe that there's a source out there, there's a power that we need to tap into, a divine power, the power of God, that can help us to stay focused on our mission. That's what causes someone to go into the inner city and help children way after the Congress has stopped talking about it and the camera lights are gone. They're in there day in and day out. And that's what keeps successful people moving forward, is they've discovered their purpose and they keep that focus.
Now, why are you so, have so much passion for people to find their purpose and their focus?
Because my purpose is to help others find their purpose. Out of the supernatural events that have transpired in my life. You know, I could be flying on a plane, which is the best way to fly. I could be flying on a plane, and as I'm riding along, though the airlines might have scheduled someone beside me, I pick up things. I sense things. And I'll begin engaging a conversation with them. And it always comes around to purpose.
Tell me one real person that was on an airplane with you that this happened with.
Very fine dressed lady one day was sitting next to me, and just dressed immaculate, and was flying and was telling me that her husband was transferred, and she's flying back and forth, making decisions about her home and how wonderful this is going to be. And I have this impression on the inside of me that she is not a happy camper. Though she looks happy and she acts happy, she's not happy.
Sort of like Hollywood, you know, where it looks like a beautiful scene on television or in the movies, but if you were really there, you'd see there's nothing behind that scene. It's like a facade, and that's the way a lot of people are. They're crying on the inside, hurting bad on the inside, but they've got so much pride they don't want anyone to know this. And so they look fine and they smile and they're happy and coming apart on the inside. Is that what you were talking about?
That's exactly right. And as I began talking with her, I couldn't help but just say what I sensed, you know, and I said, you're not happy. And really you're not happy because you thought there was life over here, and now you're being uprooted and you're changing, and it's impacting family and your children. But I want you to know that God does have a purpose for your life. And even though you're making a geographical move, you're going to find focus and you're going to find purpose. And she went from running mascara in tears to laughter and joy. And she said, I believe God must have put you here beside me, because this morning I was praying, God, am I doing the right thing?
What is the greatest enemy of people fulfilling their God-ordained purpose?
Many people think this is as good as it gets. Many people think this is my lot in life. My parents did this, so I'm going to do this. My family lived here, I'm going to live here. They think this is as good as it gets, but I'm here to tell people there's more. There is so much more in life. And if you're just willing to cooperate with the Creator, is a term I like to use, because He made you. And if He made you, He can reveal His purpose for your life.
Do you remember what Paul said, that angel said to him? Everything. That's pretty inclusive. Everything. Everything is going to be all right. I believe that's a word for you right now. Everything. Everything. You don't understand exactly what's happening, but God's Spirit moves through sound. And you are capturing something very supernatural right now. Everything. Everything is going to work out all right. Now, there is a purpose, and you're not going to be happy till you fulfill that purpose. There's a focus for that purpose. You're not going to be happy till you fulfill that focus for that purpose. But true happiness doesn't come in what you do. True happiness comes in who you know. The world can change. Even your purpose can change. Everything can be topsy-turvy. But if you know God intimately, I'm not talking about going to church or synagogue. Those are fine and good. I'm talking about knowing God because you believe Jesus died for your sins, has washed away your blood, your sins by His blood, and you with your mouth say, Jesus, come inside of me, take over my life, I make you Lord over every area of my life. That's your purpose, for intimacy. You were created for intimacy. Intimacy with God. You are special. Before you were conceived in your mother's womb, God knew you and called you. God knows you. You're not an accident. Everything's going to work out all right. I said everything is going to work out all right.